This episode of Capes and Lunatics is brought to you by Tweaked Audio. Get awesome headphones, go to tweakedaudio.com and use the coupon code Southgate to get 30% off, free shipping, and a lifetime warranty. Or you can get there through the link on our website, southgatemediagroup.com.
This is Luca Perich, and you're listening to the Capes and Lunatics podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Nightwing News. I am Phil, you know Kristen's here, and once again we promised you a third guest in the last few weeks, and yes, here he is, Mr. Tim Seeley. Hello Tim, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Welcome to my office here, which looks kind of grim and gloomy. I apologize. It's
I don't know. It looks like it has lots of cool comics in it.
I was gonna say I need
also I bought a comic rack.
I want to spin a rack.
Oh, that's so cool!
I
You're
want
like
to
a
spin a
library.
rack in the worst way.
I figured I usually wouldn't have bought it, but you know, there's nothing else to buy, and there's COVID, so I got a treat for myself.
I mean,
That's right.
I mean, come on, it's like a business expense when you work in comics.
Absolutely, yeah. It's research for product placement.
Yeah, can you write it? Can you write it off on your
Oh, yeah.
taxes?
Indeed.
All right, so yes, we're here to talk about your work on the Grayson series and then Nightwing Rebirth. Yes. So I guess.
Very nice.
So I guess the
I know this thing is pretty heavy.
Well, all right. Well, I guess the first thing would be how did the whole thing come about? You know, the whole switch to Grayson. How did you and Tom King get come on board with all that, and how did it all begin?
All right, let's see. Well, I got an offer to work on Batman Eternal from Mike Martz at the time, and so I came onto that book, and I met all the people that were in the Batman office, Mark Doyle and Katie Kubert, and I was working on the Batman Eternal book for that year, and I got along pretty well with the editors, so they asked me to pitch for Nightwing because they didn't have like a firm idea of what they were going to do next. But they said, we think we want to do like Nightwing as a spy. So see if you can come something like for that. So I went home. It was Valentine's Day weekend. I sat home that weekend. I couldn't think of anything. I came on Sunday to do some work at my studio. Chris Burnham had a bunch of designs there. I used to work with him in the studio. They had the spiral symbol that he had designed for Grant Morrison's Batman Inc. Work. So I saw that and I was like, oh, there we go. That was the idea. So I pitched, Dick is an agent of Spiral, and I did all the research on that stuff and tied it sort of to Grant's idea. And I turned it back on Monday, and then like on Wednesday they called me like, hey, you got the job. And then they called me a couple hours later and like, oh, we also accidentally offered it to someone else at the same time because they like Tom King's pitch as well. So they said, but we like both your ideas, so they wondered if we could work together. And I was like, sure. I'd never met Tom. He'd never met me. They told me he was a newbie, but he was an actual CIA agent. So I said, yeah, sure. And so he gave me a call, and we talked through an afternoon, and we were completely on the same page with the direction we want to go. And so we kind of combined our ideas into one, and that became Grayson. So basically it was, sort of Tom's ideas were like Dick is left out in the cold, sort of he's disconnected from the Bat family, and then all the Spiral stuff and using Huntress was kind of my side of it, and then we combined it and we made one thing somehow. And then eventually that led to working on Nightwing when Grayson got rebirthed and turned into Nightwing. Then I just transferred over to writing that.
But I was rereading the Grayson stuff a while ago. It was all right. It's probably a stupid question, but Agent 37, was 37 a random number, or did it have like special meaning to you? No.
No, Detective Comics 38 is where Robin first shows up. Or is it Batman? Detective Comics 38.
Detective, yeah.
Yeah. So for I don't know, we said, well, it should be Agent 38, and then we're like, yeah, but that doesn't sound that good, and we were like, well, let's do the last issue of Detective before Robin shows up. So, because he's gone, right? That was somehow our weird rationalization. But it just sounded good. Agent 37 sounded better than Agent 38.
When you say that, it's true. There is, it's hard to define, but there is something about 37 that just, slides off the tongue easier than 38 or something.
Yeah, so it has a reference, but it's not incredibly accurate or anything. It also sort of slightly referenced James Bond, I guess, that there was a touch of that to it.
So were you a big Dick Grayson Nightwing fan before you came on board? Because you really seem to have a really good grasp on the character and who he is. And
yeah, he was sort of one of the first comic book characters I ever saw, even just saw when he was Robin. When I was a kid, and I always tell this story. It's kind of stupid and probably apocryphal at this point, but from when I was 5 years old, my mom got me for Christmas it was supposed to be the Spider-Mobile, because I loved Spider-Man, and it's supposed to come with a bunch of Marvel characters. It was the old Mego one, and instead it came with Robin, Hulk, and Green Goblin. They must have screwed up when they packed it, and so I had to play with Robin because I didn't have a Spider-Man, and then it all ties together because I had him work with a web-themed spy organization. Well, he had a web-themed car when I was a kid, so it all tracks, but. Yeah, I always liked that character. I had read Nightwing when I was in college when Chuck Dixon was on it. I loved the Teen Titans Marv Wolfman stuff with George Perez. So I was always, familiar with the character. And I always liked him, because he was a nice dude. That was always kind of the appeal to me, was that he wasn't really tormented and he was kind of chill. And that's kind of a thing about DC characters that, I kind of always appealed to me, is that at the heart of the DC character was sort of just inherent goodness, which, in these days is hard to find. So it was always compelling to me.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. I one of my favorite issues is your Rebirth. What was it, issue 9, I think, with him and Superman. I really like him and, a really well written Nightwing and Superman story, which that one was.
Yeah. When I was, at some point when I was a kid, I had read a Batman and Batman and Robin team up with Superman, and I always loved the combination of the two of them. And that Superman and Robin kind of have more in common than Batman and Robin. I always thought that was kind of fun. So yeah, it was always a thing I wanted to do. And Superman is he's probably he's my favorite superhero just because he's such a perfect idea. And he's obviously the originator of kind of the superhero genre. So putting them together, that was always fun for me. I did it in Grayson and I did it in Nightwing.
How did you decide to use Midnighter?
He was in my original pitch. I
cool.
loved the Wildstorm stuff. The Warren Ellis Authority stuff. Even just going back, I always liked Wildstorm characters. The Jim Lee stuff through the late '90s stuff. I just always loved that universe. And I had worked on Wildcats in 2010, I think, or 2000, somewhere around there. I worked on Wildcats for a while as an artist. So he was in my head, and I really wanted to put someone from the sort of espionage world that DC had kind of been building, and obviously since they absorbed Wildstorm, that was kind of a perfect thing. And also, he's obviously supposed to be Batman, but but much more cynical and gay and meaner, and I thought that those traits would make for a fun, combining those characters would just make for instant chemistry or a lack thereof. I figured that would give us a lot of story, and we were right. It totally worked.
Yeah, no, it definitely did. So I must admit that this was my first time reading Midnighter. So that stuff about like the God Garden and stuff, did you invent that, or was that part of his thing already?
I made that up, but it's just felt like a Wildstorm idea.
Okay, that's cool.
Because if you ever,
well, that's good to know, because I was like, I have no idea what's going on with this. Is this like some deep history I need to know?
You know, obviously his origin was going to have to be different in the DC series than it was in the Wildstorm stuff, just because it doesn't quite track. So I just made something up, like, you know, that he was sort of a rescued genetics project, and you know, this whole. It just seemed like a very Wildstorm idea, and I just needed someone for him to talk to, you know.
No, I mean it definitely worked.
Yeah, it was fun and everything. I just tried to like make it big and weird and superhero-y and colorful. That was kind of just always the goal.
I mean, you succeeded, because I mean, take this as a compliment. I love Grant Morrison's writing. Some of the stuff in there reminded me of like Grant Morrison. I was like, oh, this is like, wow, this is some of the stuff was like blowing my mind. I'm like, this is awesome, you know.
Yeah, I think the thing with Grayson is that it held up over time. I think, you know, at the time people hated us. Like, we got people telling us that, you know, that we were going to ruin Nightwing, and people were so mad about it. And then when they actually read it, which happens to me often, they were like, okay, I wanted to hate this, but I actually liked it because it was more respectful than they thought. I think people thought we were going to just take a shit on it, and we were never going to do that. We were never going to, you know, try to ruin the character or, you know, treat him like, you know, make fun of the character. We might make fun of some of the way he acts, but we were never going to make fun of the character or, you know, our intent was always to say he's a guy who thinks in black and white, and we're going to put him in a gray world, and the character will always be himself. It will always be that way, but he has to circumnavigate this, you know, world with shady morals and all this sort of stuff. And there was humor in that too, right? That he, you know, that he was never going to be a good spy. He was always going to be a good dude. Like, that was kind of our approach, I think.
Yeah, I think a little bit that DC marketing or whoever, like, kind of, I don't want to say threw you under the bus at the beginning. I think maybe they were trying to generate controversy because, like, the first promotional materials were him pointing the gun at everybody. And I think that, you know, flipped people out there like, oh my God, he wouldn't use a gun. Like, what is going on? And so, I mean, they probably did that on purpose to get, you know, what sells more things than riled up comic fans? Probably nothing.
And then exactly right. Yeah, I mean, and you know, we saw that image and we were like, oh, he doesn't use a gun in here, and they're like, well, you know, this is the design we're going with, so we just had him throw it in the first issue.
And that was awesome. Yeah, I mean, and so that I think definitely I remember seeing on the internet when that first came out, people were up in arms like, oh my God, you know, with the gun. And then somebody made a cartoon that was Dick, like, looking weird at the gun and then throwing it like a batarang at somebody. And people were like, oh, that would be great if that's what happened. And then that's basically what happened in the comic. So yeah, I think people got all like, at the beginning, probably because DC was trying to rile us up to sell issues.
Exactly. Then, it's part of the job. You know, if you get complacent or bored, then you don't buy it. So, you know, it's just part of the deal. You know, it was never my thing in particular to, you know, but I understood that we had to show that he was a spy. So giving him the gun sort of showed at least that he was in a different world. So I totally got it, you know.
And I think because for a while I was on Tumblr, but then I quit. It stressed me out too much. And people were definitely
those people hated it.
Yeah, they're like, it's too sexy and stuff. And like, I was like, oh my God, if he uses a gun, I don't know. And then I read the first issue and he didn't use a gun. I thought, oh, this is pretty fun. And so I really liked the series. I mean, obviously you don't buy the omnibus of something you don't like. And yeah, I thought it was really good. I think maybe too many people, didn't appreciate that you were also kind of poking fun at the spy genre. And so,
yeah,
like, I think a lot of people missed that. At least a lot of people on Tumblr missed that. Or they didn't like it. And okay, I mean, I guess if you don't like it, that's fine. But
when he comes up with his own,
it's not your fault that that's what the spy genre is.
I think they got it when he came up with his own spy song.
Yeah, Yeah.
Right, but I mean, I think a lot of people were like, it's too sexy, and
there's no such thing too sexy.
That's what spy stuff is. I mean,
yeah, but I always think the characters is that like
yes.
There was always sort of an edge of swashbuckler romance to that character, and all we did was sort of move it into a different realm. That's it. It was always there.
Right.
So we got pushback and stuff, but I've worked at DC for long enough to know that no matter what I did, I was going to get pushback from some people, and some people were going to tell me I ruined their lives, and some people were going to tell me that I, that I was abusing the characters. Like, I can't abuse him; he's not real, and but people are passionate about it. That's totally fine. I did my job, and I hope people liked it, and most people did, and some people did it, and now I do something else, and that's just the way the job is.
And did you know the Nightwing butt thing would be as big as it was that it got?
Yeah, we used to, Tom and I, when we would get done with the issue, we would be like, what's the, because this is sort of, like you said, this is sort of the beginning of the Tumblr sort of like, I don't even know if that's still around. I haven't checked in so long, but we knew like people would find images from comics and that those things would become, sort of memes almost. And so we would try to do that almost every issue, where we would get to the end of issue, we'd wonder what it was going to be. Like, and so there was the recognizing him by his ass, and
that was hilarious. That's a great joke.
Tom had some really good ones, like him doing "Am I Straight?" that joke, and just stuff like that. Like,
oh yeah, that was memed so fast.
Yeah, exactly. So, but that was our job, was to get attention to the character, and so we did it. We tried to do it as well as we could, and we had beautiful art by Mikkel Hanine, and we had awesome colors from Jeremy, and it was just it was a beautiful book. It was well done. It was, Carlos, our letterer, everybody on that team was like dedicated to making that as high a quality comic as we could, even if some people were going to be mad at us. And then we just were like, that's fine. They can be mad at us.
Yeah. Did you know how long it was going to last coming in? Did you know it was only going to be 20 or so issues? Or
6, we thought it would be.
That's it?
Well, everything at the time was sort of like, let's try it for 6 and see how it goes. And so we plotted something based around that we might only do 6. But then obviously it sold pretty well. And they were just going to keep going, if not for the sort of company-wide mandate, which, that had obviously a big impact on us, but nothing we could have done anything about, right? It was just, we're going back to the classic versions of these characters. And obviously Grayson was not a classic version of Nightwing. Sure. So, and I sort of to this day think that what we set up in Nightwing works better as that for that character than Nightwing does, because it's sort of Nightwing is sort of ends up. I think it ends up being sort of a reiteration of Batman, except you always have that, like, he's not in Gotham, so you try to make a city that's worse than Gotham. That doesn't make sense, and then it ends up just sort of being Daredevil light, I think, which doesn't serve the character as well. There's not a big sort of get for the character, big conflict for the character in just being a guy who does what Batman does. But there is a conflict for him being a guy who has to monitor other superheroes and who has to live in a gray world, and all those things that we set up, I think, works a little better for that character, for Dick Grayson. I think he works great as Robin, but he wasn't going to be Robin. I think he works great as Nightwing in Teen Titans. But it's harder, I think, like set him in a city and have him be an urban vigilante. Like, he doesn't have as cool of a job as Daredevil, so that's never going to work as well. And he doesn't have the great sort of cast and the theme of Spider-Man. So like it ends up, I think, just not as good from a storytelling perspective.
But what was I going to say? Sorry, go, Kristen. Go. I lost my train of thought.
Sorry, I yammered for a while.
No, that's okay.
No, that was cool. No, yeah, I just didn't know how far in advance they knew like Rebirth was going to happen, but probably
not very.
Okay, so
because we had to. Tom got put on Batman. I got put on Nightwing, and those were coming out twice a month, and the workload was like just intense. But they wanted to get ahead, so we had to give up Grayson at, where did we stop writing it at? 18 or 18, I think. And even though it went on after that, like we couldn't.
Few issues before the end, yeah.
Yeah, we just couldn't do it. And I mean, the first issue of Nightwing I wrote 13 times, I think. The most I've ever written anything. So, obviously there was lots of eyes on it and lots of suggestions and lots of tying it into the other books. So I wrote Grayson once. Just once. Grayson 1 I just wrote once. So, yeah. So Nightwing was a much tougher,
That's a lot of revise and resubmit.
My favorite title, Better Than Batman.
Yeah, that was all Jeff Johns. That was his idea.
Oh, nice.
Because so when we started Rebirth, they flew us all out to Burbank, and then we would each have these one-on-one meetings with Jeff, and he would sort of ask what we were thinking about doing. So we'd pitch our ideas, and he would like listen to you, and they'd say, "Okay, well, here's what I think it's about." And he was like, Nightwing is about a guy who's in the shadow of his teacher, and so he's trying to be better than Batman, and he looks for a guy who can teach him more than Batman does. It's like, wow. I mean, Jeff just came up with that, like, I don't know how long you've been thinking about it, but that was the, idea he had. I was like, okay, all right, that'll be the story. And so I went home and came up with Raptor with the help of my editors. Rebecca Taylor helped me a lot with him, and the artist Javier. And so we kind of reverse engineered that character to fit as a sort of, another sort of anti-Batman, anti-Nightwing character.
Yeah, I love that Raptor character because he's pretty much one of the few rogues that is like just Nightwings. Like a lot of his other enemies, like he shares them with either Batman or the Titans. Because
yeah, totally. Yeah, and that was hard to do too because the only other one that he had, that's sort of a recognizable was Blockbuster, who to me is just like a version of Kingpin, the version that they used in Nightwing. Which is fine, but is also less interesting because Kingpin is not superpowered. He's just a guy who, by sheer force of will, bulldozes his way into power. And Blockbuster's got like super strength and all this other stuff. So it was inherently less interesting to me, like how he got to be where he was. So that's why when we finally got to him, I was like, we have to do something different. I can't, I can't just have him be, sort of bad hair Kingpin.
So, what was your favorite one that you wrote in Grayson? Do you have a favorite issue? You're like, that's my baby.
I think. I mean, I can't remember specifically which ones are favorite. I have favorite moments for sure.
That'll work.
I like the one. Was it 2 or 4? I can't remember. Which is basically just Dick is kind of playing tag with the girls of the school. I like that one. And then I really liked, I like Tom's issue 17, I think, where the theme song, where he was just having a great time. Like, it was just Tom being like, you know what the hell, this is fun. And he just did a fun story. So, yeah. It's hard to remember, like, at this point, Like, I haven't reread it in a while, so I don't remember which ones I liked. I definitely like moments, I think.
I love him telling off Lex Luthor and then like just like jumping like over the cliff and stuff.
That one I really like too. I love, like I said, Superman is probably my favorite. So the Lex Luthor issue I really, really like. And it just, I get to write, a sort of industrial espionage sort of story and set him against Lex Luthor. And I had to, that one was really fun. Thank you for reminding me. I forgot I did that one. I did like that one.
Yeah. And you said Huntress was part of your original pitch, right?
I'm trying to remember exactly how it worked. They said that Helena Wayne was Huntress in the current version of DCU, in the New 52. They said, so we have the name Helena Bertinelli kicking around. And they said, can you come up with a version of her that fits in this? So, I don't know. I probably, I made her, Afro-Italian woman. I made her different, and I feel like I sort of ended up, maybe that wasn't what they wanted, or maybe that's not what the instructions were. But I just thought, well, we already have Huntress. Why do we need another one? But I thought Helena Bertinelli as a character was an interesting idea. And then I think they kind of went back on it and they made her the Huntress in Rebirth and kind of,
Yeah, I think Helena Wayne was like Earth 2, and I don't know if they abandoned that Earth 2 concept, at least for a while, so yeah.
Yeah, your new Helena Bertinelli was cool, but I don't know what happened to her now.
She just got turned into Huntress, I think, which is fine. I mean, that character ended up being in the Birds of Prey movie, so like the value of that character changed. Yeah, I mean, they probably wouldn't have given it to us the way they did after that. But I mean, we had fun with it. We were trying to do a version of her that was sort of, instead of becoming a superhero and all that sort of stuff, that she was, like a spy master. And I'd use the Grant Morrison to come up with that school in Batman Inc., the school for girls. And I just loved that idea. And I thought, if Helena was sort of like their assassination class teacher, that, I could get a lot of story out of her, and that she had sort of trained herself to get revenge on these mafia guys by becoming an assassin. I thought that would be cool. I think it might have got a little bit like they tempered it down a little bit. But I love that character. I really liked her interactions with Dick, and they're sort of like, the tension, because they had this like physical attraction, but obviously they couldn't trust each other. And so, I don't know, anything I can put in a story that is a story engine that generates more story, I'll do it. And that was one of those things.
Okay, here's a question, because we had talked to Cal Higgins a few weeks ago, so I don't know if you were in on this decision or not, but did you have anything to do with Nightwing going back to a blue costume? Because he had a red one going into Grayson.
No, I had nothing to do with it. They again, when we had the meeting with Jeff,
they wanted the classic.
He did that summary, and then he said, "Oh, he's going to be blue. He's definitely going to be blue." And that was like pretty much the major instruction that we got for design. So we went to Javier, and he started coming up with design stuff. That was one of the first sort of things he made the decision of it was going to be blue, and the logo was going to be blue, and it was just like going back to the things, the version of the character that everybody loved. That was the idea, and so that's of course it was going to be blue. You have a blue background wing thing on there. That's the thing everybody loves. So we gave it to everybody. Yep, everybody loved it. I thought red looked cool, but and when we talked about when we originally did Grayson, he was going to have two different costumes. He was going to have a red one and a blue one for his spy work, and it was going to be like they had different functions. One was like holographic and all this shit. I don't know. We had all these ideas, but we ended up with the sort of blue streaked lined one that Mikkel designed
with like khakis or something.
Yeah.
Cargo pants, right?
Yeah, pants, yeah.
The spy pants.
Yep, because when you're a spy, you got to carry shit. So
exactly, and you can't have fancy gauntlets to do it. You got to blend in and look normal.
Right, totally. But you can look cool. And we gave him a little G on his chest, sort of a little reference there to, even though it was just what do you call those things? It was like a clasp for his jacket, but it looked like a G. Just So was him returning to Bloodhaven your idea, or was that part of the mandate of going back to basics? It was a mandate, and I think it was Dan DiDio who had the idea that Bloodhaven should be the place that all the supervillains who couldn't deal with Batman ran to, which I thought was a great idea. And so that's what I try to do with it, because it didn't make sense to me that Gotham is the place that birthed Batman, but there's a city that's rougher next door. Like, that doesn't make sense. But I felt like if Bloodhaven was, different, more working class, I kind of wanted it to be like it's a gambling town. It was like this place that relied on tourism, and it had casinos and stuff. I just wanted it to be different than Gotham, which Gotham was like sort of this classy Gothic city. I wanted Bloodhaven to be something unique, and so I wanted to be neon lit and full of all these giant casinos, and the corruption was sort of like the money was coming in through the casinos, so there's all these corrupt politicians and stuff. That was my take on it. I don't think they stuck with it, but if I was going to do Bloodhaven, it was like I have to find a reason to care about this, and I can't care about cities are America's urban hell. Like, I just can't fucking do it. I just especially not when there's all these people in rural places who believe that for real. And I live in Chicago, and it's quite nice here. And so I just wasn't going to do, no way I was going to do the blighted urban warscape that Frank Miller did, 30 fucking years ago.
That's so 1980s.
Yeah, it is. It's like, Reagan era thing, and I don't, it's fine. It works great in Dark Knight, but I just didn't want to do it.
Well, and cities are experiencing a revival.
I mean, they were until
not this year.
before COVID.
Okay, yes, nothing. Okay, yes, 2020 has thrown us all for a loop.
Yeah, but in general, again, I felt like, I wanted it to be a place Dick would want to stay, like, so that it had this, so we gave it, like, a community, and we talked about what kind of people move there and like neighborhoods, and I tried to build this whole thing, and I think they just went back to it being an urban shithole, so that was kind of, but,
yeah, well, I mean, now Dick's kind of lost his memory, so...
he finally got it back, yeah, but...
Well, yeah, he just got it back. So, I mean, we haven't really been worrying too much about what Bloodhaven is.
Yeah, I'm sure.
He forgot, so...
Yeah, he forgot.
Who knows? Bloodhaven could have reinvented itself in the amount of time that...
Or could have burned down, we don't know.
There's an image, yeah, this could be totally different.
But yeah, I'm like an ultimate Dick Grayson and Barbara Gordon shipper, but like I said, I do like the Huntress character and that you kind of revamped, and then even the other one, Defacer, so all right, so end of the day, if they said to you, we're going to marry Nightwing off, you get to choose who he's with, do you pick either Helena or do you pick Sean?
Oh, man, I wouldn't marry him off. I would resist that. Just because, like, I think young superhero characters, like, it just, you need the sort of thing that you don't know what they're going to end up with. You need the freedom, and they can't be divorced. Like, it's a prison that you cannot get yourself out of. And, like, I know people sort of have the affection for the characters and they want to see them come to an end that makes them happy, or they want to see them together, but like that's story poison. Like that'll just kill your, and like it messed up, unfortunately, but it messes up Spider-Man, it messed up Superman.
Oh, well, the way they got rid of that Spider-Man marriage, I'm still mad about that.
But it's like they should have done it in the first place. Like I know why you do it, but like if you're going to keep these characters going forever, you put yourself in a trap, it's just, I'm married and I have a kid and I'm very happy with it. But as a superhero, that means it puts you in the character cannot, you can't have tension with some superhero character or, it's like moving him in with Batgirl. Like those characters both have their own titles. Mm-hmm. If they're romantically involved, their titles have now to completely line up in every way because they're married characters. It just doesn't work. It's just, it's a bummer that's kind of how. But, if you want change, you have to read creator-owned comics or non-superhero comics. That's kind of how it is. So,
yeah, I was going to say, I imagine that part of it is also, and it's not necessarily true. I mean, it's not necessarily true in real life, but I think because of the way we conceive of marriage and stuff, it really ages the characters, right? And there's such a big thing about being youthful. I mean, it's not as though you have to be old to get married. I mean, once you turn 18, you can get married. But I think people perceive you as younger if you're not married, and older if you are married. Even two people who are the same age. Yeah. They're like, oh, you're married, you must be older.
Yeah, it just sort of, it puts on a, it now moves you into a different time of your life, right? If you're a swinging young character and you get married, you are now in a different spot. You're in the middle. You're not in the beginning. And that's just how we, as a culture, view things. So, because then it's the question of, are you going to have kids and all that sort of stuff. It's like, there's a reason those characters only have kids in imaginary worlds set in the future, right? Like, and they're all imaginary, but like, alternate dimensions and stuff. It just doesn't, you can't do it to superheroes. It's such a weird thing. It's a bummer, but, every time you do it, you end up with an impossible to fix situation.
Yeah, I feel like it can maybe work a little bit with Superman because he's basically invulnerable. But yeah, if you pause to think about it, which of course we're already willing suspension of disbelief, but I mean, if you're a superhero and you become a parent, that's super irresponsible. Because you have this kid that depends on you for everything, and you're like, bye, kid, I gotta go.
I mean, yeah,
possibly die every night.
With the Bat family, yeah, but I mean, Superman's kid inherits his powers.
Well, right, that's why I said, I mean, in that regard, it's okay. It works better with Superman because he's always bulletproof no matter what.
Yeah, I buy that one because I really don't buy Superman like sleeping around and stuff,
No, but it ruins the thing. So, like, if superhero characters, especially the big two ones, are really supposed to be aimed at kids and teenagers, maybe young college kids, like, now you're reading comics about your dad. And as much as you may like your dad isn't cool. It's just the way it is. And I think that sort of limits their appeal to some degree. And this thing that makes Superman work classically has been the sort of triangle relationship of Jimmy, Superman, and Lois. And if Superman is married to Lois, the tension of like will I be able to impress Lois, or will she finally notice me, and we're competing for jobs, but she loves Superman and not Clark Kent. Like, that stuff's important. That's super important stuff to keep those characters relevant. And when you get rid of it, you instantly go, oh, damn it. And it's cool to have Superboy, and it's cool to have Robin, but, making your superheroes dads means they're super dads and they're telling you what to do. And then you're like, no, I'm not reading this shit.
and like I've said too, it's like, the other thing with the married Superman, it's like, Superman's so goody, like you really can't like make him be like, like a abusive husband or anything. It's not even abusive, but just like,
he would never.
It's usually, even if they have like a married squabble, Lois usually comes off as the jerk because it's like, oh, well, Superman's such a nice guy. You're never going to see him like.
It's true, but he can't always be right.
Yeah, but you're not going to see him like scream his head off at her. Like scream at her.
Yeah, it just ends up. You just ends up with stories that like I understand why we end up doing that stuff because it attracts attention, but in the end, like, you just end up having to undo it. So it's
right. And I suppose that brings up another thing, because I always was saying, I'm sure once they decided that they wanted Robin, it was like bringing an orphan, because I mean, you can't just have a baby and then instantly have the kid be 8 years old or, whatever, but you can do that with an orphan that he adopts. But of course, you also make a good point. Then Batman's still kind of, the line is fuzzy. It's sort of, is he his dad? Is he his cool uncle? Is he his super cool older brother? Are they just best buds? And they're the original Dick and Bruce Batman Robin relationship is kind of all of those things. Sometimes Batman's kind of like a dad. Sometimes he's like a cool older brother. Sometimes he's like your best friend. And so you can kind of read into it what you want. So then, Batman's not
sometimes
like,
it gives you the back. Sometimes it gives you the back.
Meant to just be they added Robin because they wanted kids to read that comic, and Robin is you, right? You're the kid, and you're like, oh, I want to hang out with Batman. Oh, see, we have a guy who hangs out with Batman every month. You should check this comic out.
Yeah.
That's all that's what he was there for. And it lightened the book up, obviously, because it was, more of a influenced by the Shadow and other stuff.
Yep.
So it was a darker, pulpier-ish comic until they added Robin, and then, then it's more for the readers that they were trying to get. And obviously the problem is that, you don't use Robin that way, and people are sort of ashamed of Robin, which is a bummer, because nothing wrong with Robin. Robin's a great idea, and it brings people.
Robin's awesome. Yeah. #1 sidekick.
Yeah, exactly. It's just, people get weird about it. They start being like, oh, he's a danger to kids. Like, well, it's not real, so that's fine. And then,
right, it's like, yeah, obviously, this is willing suspension of disbelief. Batman's also, probably 100 years old, if he was. He's at least 80, and I don't know too many 80-year-olds who are out there flying through the night.
Yeah.
But maybe I just haven't looked in the right places.
He'd be like in his 90s if he was,
Yeah, I think at least, yeah. Or over 100, yeah. If he's 20 or something. Yeah, so, yeah, exactly.
All right, I may be totally off base, but just from your writing, like, I think you really enjoy the relationship between Dick and Damian.
I do, yeah. I thought that was great. That was one of my favorite parts of Grant's stuff. Well, I liked all of Grant's stuff.
Yeah.
It's a reversal of the
mm-hmm.
the classic Batman and Robin relationship, which is Batman is sort of, grim and focused, and Robin is the light-hearted one, and they reversed it, and now Batman is cool and nice and chill, and Robin is a psycho, and you maintain that dynamic. Like, that's one of the things Grant did that was so smart, is that he didn't ruin the dynamic, he just flipped it, which I think a lot of times you see when people sort of try to change or reboot the characters or add something, they lose what it works. Well, when you can mess around with the Fantastic Four a little bit, but you have to maintain the idea that they're family and they disagree and they fight like a family does. That's what makes it work. And if you don't have that, it doesn't work as well. That's across the line with all these superhero characters. Like, so rare to do a version of it that's new and not ruin what works, right? Like, Miles Morales works, but how many versions of Spider-Man did they try to do that don't work in the long term, So yeah, I thought that was such a great idea, and it reminds me of like my relationship with my own brothers, where like you're very close, but you have different viewpoints on things, and you can I'm kind of the dour, cranky one, and my brother Brad is like the up, the kind, always good-hearted one. So I can pull from that sort of stuff,
So you're the Damien.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I am. I'm the messed up one. So.
Are you also a master assassin?
Unfortunately, no. I'm a master nothing, actually.
No.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that back in Rebirth, because like that relationship, there was that one arc with him and Damien, because that's like one of the things, like I was glad Dick became Nightwing again when New 52 started, but I was like, I kind of missed that relationship that him and Damien had, like, every month.
Yeah. It was there's so much story that it was, yeah.
And I think, sorry.
Oh, I was saying, one of the few people that pulls that off is Grant. He's one of the ones that can do that.
And I think you wrote the one where Dick thought maybe Sean was pregnant and Damien was kind of jealous about it, and I thought that was really good, because I do think that feels really true to Damien, because he acts so tough, petty. But he was kind of messed up the way he was brought up, so he would definitely worry about, like, are you replacing me with another kid? Absolutely,
yeah. I had much bigger, different plans for how that story turned out, but we had to deal with constrictions, obviously, because so it didn't get to do exactly what I wanted, but I still like that moment. So I'm glad that stuck, because I liked that part.
Oh yeah, it was good. Wait, were you going to really have him have a baby?
Well, I won't tell you the original plan, because I don't know if it would have worked, because it was in context. I think was what we needed it to be, but I had a different plan, and we changed it, so it is what it is.
Fair enough. I mean, it definitely got people talking on the internet, but when it came out, I was like, there's no way. That's too much. I was like, just like him getting married, just like when they were like, Batman and Catwoman are getting married. I was like, no, they're not.
There you go.
That is not happening.
All right, Kristen, any other questions?
Well, we kind of touched on it. So, when you transition to writing, what's it like to write 2 comics for the same series in the same month? And would you ever do it again?
I mean, I can write 4 or 5 comics a month, and I have for a long time, just as a sort of job. But yeah, two issues of the same title, especially when you're trying to connect it to other titles. I would hope, I don't know. I don't think I could do it again. The hard thing with Nightwing 2 was, like, they were setting up some of the crossovers. They were setting up Metal, and they were setting up some other stuff. And, like, I just couldn't keep up. I didn't know. I wrote a whole issue of something once, and we found out that one of the characters, was no longer, I don't know, I think they were dead or changed into something else. And I had to rewrite it, like, on a weekend night while I was on an airplane. And, like, it was just so hard to, just keep up with everything. So, I could do 2 issues of Money Shot a month. I could probably do that, because that's mine, or 2 issues of Hack Slash or something. But man, 2 issues of, like, a superhero comic, then a connected universe was really, really, really hard. I'm glad I did it. But I definitely, I had more hair when I started Nightwing. And so.
Is that the biggest challenge of writing for the big 2, is like having to tie in the other stuff when for a crossover? Yeah. It's
really hard. Yeah, because especially since, they kind of go by leads. Like, so, when you're working in the Bat universe, whoever's writing Batman kind of, because it sells the most, kind of directs the entire thing. And so you're sort of in service to that. And obviously he's the most popular character. So, so it kind of, you become the one that has to change things. And, it's hard. It is definitely hard. And then, if it doesn't turn out amazing, no one blames anybody but the writer, right? So, like, even if, I think it worked, but, like, when we were writing the Dr. Hurt story that we did in Nightwing, that was completely a different thing. Absolutely not even close to that story. And when we started, by the time we ended, we had something, I just had to, it was improv. I improv the whole thing. Which, sometimes works and sometimes less so.
So probably you'd say the biggest strength for a comic creator, at least working for the big 2, is like you have to be able to adapt on the fly and change course very quickly.
Yeah, I don't know how anybody would do it well. I've had people ask me, like, what stuff that you should study. I was like, honestly, like, one time took, like, an improv comedy thing, and I'm so glad I took it, because part of the job is, like, yes and you just have to, like, and once you make a decision, then you have to, now you can't second guess that decision. It went in a book, it got published, it's too late. Now you have to move on. You can't go, well, what if I could have done it? It doesn't matter. You're just, you're reacting to what you did. So, it's fun. I think, obviously I think TV writing is sort of like that. Obviously writing a film or a novel is not, but yeah, it's fun and it's also really difficult.
I would think comics writing would be worse than like even TV, because it's like at least TV, they take breaks for seasons and stuff. Comics, it's every month. It's like, okay, and now.
Yeah. Yeah,
it sounds really stressful. I haven't
had a vacation in, 6.5 years.
Oh, jeez.
So there you go. Yes, write comic. Woo!
Write comics. People will tell you on the internet you're ruining their lives, and you won't get a vacation for 6.5 years. What's not to love?
That's awesome.
So it's like even if you did go to the beach or something, you'd still be sitting there like typing away or something.
Well, I went to Mexico City for a convention, and I was like trying really hard to set it up because I really just want to enjoy Mexico City. And I got there, my editor was like, it was actually that Dr. Hurt issue. It was like, oh, you have to rewrite the ending, and so everybody else is going out and doing stuff in Mexico City. I was sitting in my hotel room all Friday during the convention and all night looking outside at the action going on outside. Oh. So it's just like part of the job. You never know. Sometimes you nail it and you don't have to rewrite anything, and then sometimes you don't, and you spend a weekend rewriting what you wrote.
Well, I'm sorry you lost that time, but thank you. It was a good story. So
it shook out.
It sounds like email and the cell phone are the bane of your existence as a comic writer.
Yeah, I suppose. But then it would still have to get done. So if you weren't there to get the phone, it would still get done. It just wouldn't be you rewriting it. It would be somebody else. So,
and that might be worse.
Yeah, but it just might not work with your plans, or you might, again. But all those guys, like all those men and women who do this job, the superhero writers, they're completely. Like Dan Jurgens, he's been doing this for so long. He's still so good at it, and he just goes with the punches, man. He just, oh, there we go, and I can do it, but I think. I got burnt out after a while. I definitely sort of reached I have seen enough superhero stuff for a little while because you're just so in it, But yeah, it's fun while you're on it. It's a ride. That's the reality.
But it seems like it would be a bad job for someone who was kind of a perfectionist because.
Oh yeah, you couldn't do it. You couldn't do it. It would be impossible. Comic artists, you have to adopt the philosophy of you get paid to draw, not to erase. That's the job. So, but yeah, it's just that's how they're made. Here anyway, not everywhere, but in the USA, that's how we make them. So that's how it is.
Well, here let's plug your books you're doing now. So it's for you. Is it better writing your own stuff? The stuff that you created from scratch.
I don't know. Better. It's
much different.
Yeah, it's different and easier in a lot of ways. And it's harder in the way that you have no
roadmap.
One of the nice things about like working on something set in a universe that exists is like you have the pieces already. You just have to move them around. When you make your own stuff, obviously you have to make up all the pieces. So, when you're writing Nightwing and you're like, oh, I need a bad guy, and you're like, oh, this guy exists, and then you can just plug and play. But obviously, when you're doing your own thing, it's scratch. Everything's scratch, so it takes a little bit longer. Yeah, it's just different jobs. I like both. I'm writing. So now I'm doing 2 books that are OGNs that I'm working on, so they haven't been announced. And I'm almost done with them. Then they were a godsend during the pandemic because they didn't shut down, so that was great. And then I'm doing Vampire the Masquerade at Vault and Money Shot and Bloodshot. So lots of shots. Bloodshot's at Valiant. What else am I doing?
Oh, you're writing Vampire the Masquerade. My one buddy he's been reading that. He loves it.
Yeah, and that one's turned out really good. I'm really happy with that book. I think, it fits. I'm kind of a horror writer, I think, at heart. So, and it's kind of a crime horror sort of combo. And I love the game, that world. So we're making, it's new characters, but it's in the world of vampires. So we have to play with all the cool pieces that they developed for that game world. It's genius. And then I'm doing 2 books for Aftershock. So I don't know, the last couple of years I just tried to do a bunch of create our own stuff, and really, I don't know, recharge the batteries a little bit, I think, as much as I can. And then hopefully my brain will be good and fresh when I start this next DC superhero thing I'm doing in a little bit. So, so always fun, always working.
No vacations.
I was gonna say, the one good thing for that come out of the pandemic, did you get like extra time to write? Did you get ahead a little bit, or?
No. Well, so the nice thing was actually, like, it actually worked out well. A lot of people I know, some publishers got really scared and they sort of pulled back a lot.
Yeah.
Which ended up being maybe not necessary because comic sales actually are good, and comics were, not affected really as much by the pandemic. It's just about everything else. I think average retail drop was 34% or something, and comics was 7%.
People need stuff to read when they're stuck at home.
Yeah, I think they said right now, I think the sales are up more than I forget how much over last year. That's what I said. I'm like, probably anything you can do at home is up sales-wise.
Totally. So I know a lot of people that were sort of penciled down and they weren't working. And I got lucky because I was working on those OGNs. And also Vault, didn't stop. And Aftershock didn't stop. Like, some of them kept going, which is great. So I still had stuff to do. But it means I didn't get any weeks off or anything. But that's okay. So I'm working. I'm making stuff. It's coming out, and I was able to put together some pitches and get stuff going at other companies and stuff. So, and I worked actually this summer. I wrote a film, and I'm working on a video game. So I'm always doing stuff. So always doing something, and I teach too. So there you go. I teach at Columbia College of Chicago. So there you go.
Not general writing or comic book writing, or
I don't teach. I teach drawing for animation, and I teach a cartooning class. Or story and story. So yeah.
So okay, now I have 2 questions. I was going to ask, because I ask everyone, what's your favorite or thing you're most proud of that you've done that's not superhero stuff? Like, what should we all go off and read? But then you started saying you were writing a film. So how similar or different is writing comics versus writing a film?
It's really different.
Okay.
But I thought it would be harder. Actually, writing a movie, at least this time, was easier. I think
that's good.
Yeah, just because you could just sort of, I don't know, with a comic you have to think about a unit every time. It's always a page, and how much, what is that page? Where the movie you could just write in for much longer extended periods of time before you have to consider what this unit is. So you write in acts and structures that way and stuff. So I'm sure it's hard when you're doing something that wasn't the subject matter that which is something I was pretty familiar with. So, but yeah, it was fun. I would definitely do it again. I was afraid to do it for some reason. I thought it would be tougher to learn the script format, and it wasn't. And I just, so we pulled it off. It exists. It is out there. So, yeah. And I think overall, if I'm pushing people on any of my stuff, obviously Hack Slash and Revival, I guess, are the ones that people probably know me for the most. So I wouldn't, they're both things you can read in a big chunk if you like, because they exist out in a bunch of sets of books. But I mean, right now I'm super happy with Money Shot and Vampire as well. I think they're pretty good. And then anytime I do Master of the Universe stuff, which is my favorite thing from when I was a kid, I think it usually turns out pretty fun. If not, not Oscar award winning stuff, it's at least really fun and really inventive. And you can tell my heart is in it when I do He-Man stuff.
Nice.
All right. 2 things. One, if anyone wants to check out all your stuff, what's the easiest way? Do you have a website, I know you have social media, but a website?
Yeah. My website, I have to look it up because I always forget it. It's timseeleycreative.com, I think. Let me just make sure I got it right. Yes, timseeleycreative.com is my website. Just making sure I have a Gumroad store where I sell prints and everything. Yeah, so timseeleycreative.com is my website. My store, I have prints and comics and signed stuff. But I'm on Twitter at @HackinTimSeeley and Instagram at Tim Seeley.
Cool. All right, Kristen, anything else, or should we let this man go back to writing his 20 books?
I was going to say thanks for squeezing us in and all your not having a vacation time. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thanks for I appreciate it.
I swear that's the people who get back to me, the ones who are like writing 20 different things at once. I'm just
yeah, I'm sorry it took me. I skipped. Sometimes I forget we have a 1-year-old and bedtime is 8. So like you said, and every once in a while it goes longer. every couple weeks. In fact, it goes quite a bit longer because it's a 1-year-old. So, but this was she went to bed and we're good. My wife does excellent work with the baby, so freeing me up to do podcasts. So
hey,
I appreciate it.
I have a 7-year-old. I understand. I remember
Yeah,
where you're at. Hey, just wait till your kid starts talking more. It's going to be like, hey, Dad, guess what? Guess what happened today? Blah, 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 blah. But I'm just going to keep talking so I don't have to go to bed. Blah, blah, blah.
Oh, sneaky.
Yeah, can't wait.
All right. Well, yes. Again, thank you so much. This was really great.
All right,
Great.
thank you. Thanks for having me. You guys have a good night.
Hey, you too. Thank
You
you.
too. Thank you.
So another great interview. Again, I feel bad. I'm like, I swear, like most of the people I talk to, like, yeah, I'm writing this, I'm writing that, I'm writing this. I'm like, man, when do you have time?
I know. So I feel like when you read comic books, you think, ooh, writing comic books must be so fun and glamorous. And then you talk to people, and I suppose, I mean, it's still fun, but ooh, it also sounds really stressful.
Oh yeah, I've talked to Kelly Thompson over at Marvel a couple times, and like she's like, she's writing at least 3 Marvel books right now, and I think she might be writing some other for some of the smaller companies. I'm like, how do you do it? She's like, well, you sit down one day, it's like Monday I got to write Captain Marvel, Tuesday I got to write Black Widow, Wednesday I got to write the smaller company guys.
Yeah, and I can see that. I think what would be the particularly stressful part is the back and forth, where you just never know if somebody, if it ties in with something else and somebody in a higher level book, if it's Nightwing, but something changes in Batman and then you have to change, somebody might call you up at 10 o'clock at night. Hey, I need this by midnight. And you have 2 hours to go and change stuff up. And that would be stressful.
I know. Just be like, you can't use Damien. Damien's going to be over here in this book. That's what I was going to say to him. I'm like, that must be like stressful to be like, you get like a big 10 issue, series, and it runs through all the Bat books, and it's like, okay, well, here you're gonna write chapter 3,
right? Yeah.
So it's like, okay, you're gonna pick up where someone else left off, and then you're gonna hand it over to someone else.
Yeah, I think you have to be. It definitely takes different skills, and I think probably a different personality than writing other stuff. Writing and you have to be. Yeah, I think maybe how he's saying more like TV. You have to be willing to work fast and work with other people and not take it too personally if somebody says, yeah, we need to change that, because people will have a big hand in it. And, when you write something like a novel that is, I mean, that can really be your baby.
Oh, yeah. Well,
I'm just thinking how, like, some novelists, like Anne Rice or whatever, say, don't use my characters to write fan fiction. These are mine. Kind of thing. And okay, whatever, that's your novel, but you can't be like that with comics.
Well, like I said,
they're not yours.
Comics is like a unique animal, because like even a novel, I mean, you could put years into it, but it's like when you do it, boom, it's done. You might write a sequel, but you can take however much time you want. But TV, TV, a season's like 10 to 20 episodes, and you're going to have a little bit of a break before it comes back. Comics, every month, man.
Right, and how the novel's more contained, and you can have the arc that reaches to a conclusion, and you can have some conclusions, but you can't.
Yeah. And again,
I mean, a lot of novels are, they end and everybody rides off into the sunset, or, it's a story of this person's whole life, and you can't do that with comics.
Yeah, and even TV, like some of those characters might be around a few years, but it's like, yeah, Dick Grayson's been around 80 years. It's like, okay, and now you have to come up with something unique for somebody who's been having stories told about them for 80 years.
Yeah, it's hard.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Crazy. But thankfully, some people do it, so we have fun things to read.
Yes, that's what I said. That's what I was trying to tell Tim. I'm like, thank you for, sacrificing your free time in Mexico. What was he saying? Mexico?
Thanks for not taking a vacation for 6 years.
Exactly. But yes, people know that they sacrifice for our enjoyment. I hope the money's worth it. If he can't take a vacation, I hope the money's at least worth it.
I know, and I can't help but wonder if it really is.
I was going to say, I would.
Because I mean, you're technically a freelancer.
And I'm hoping, like, when he was writing 2 issues of Nightwing a month, I hope that was like double pay. I was
just saying, yeah, you should be getting paid more.
I would think. Cause I don't think they get paid by the issue or the page count or something. But yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it's got to be more.
Well, it must not be like Dickens. They don't get paid by the word. Because otherwise there'd be no pictures on comics.
Yeah. All right, so should we get out
So
of
what's up for next week, Phil?
That's what I was going to say. Well, we're going to be back to our Detective Comics run, Detective 876 through 878.
It's time for a Hungry City, yes?
I think so, yeah. And then the week after will be Detective 879 through 881. And then... Yeah, and then it's like that animated series episode we're going to be covering, Old Wounds, and then what was the other one? Cat Scratch. But yeah, there's animated...
You scratch my back or something like that.
I still got to look up
something about scratching.
But yeah, the 2 animated series episodes, and then the last one, Teen Titans versus Teen Titans Go, yeah. So yeah, after tonight, we only got 4 more episodes this year.
Wow, the year is drawing quickly to a close.
Yep. But don't worry, kids, we'll be back in 2021.
Come on, 2021!
Hey, things are looking up.
Exactly.
All right, so, yes. There's your remainder of 2020. So, and then we start on the 81st year of Dick Grayson. All right. So, yeah, send your thoughts. Hey, let us know your thoughts on our discussion tonight with Mr. Tim Seeley, stuff to come, stuff we've already covered. Email us, capesandlunatics@gmail.com. Call the voicemail, 614-382-2737. That's 614-38-CAPES. And remember, when you go online to follow Tim Seeley, follow us on Facebook, Twitter. You can find, we'll go to Linktree, linktr.ee/capesandlunatics. You can find links to this, to our YouTube channel. Go subscribe to the YouTube. You can watch this on video. You can see Tim on video.
And you can see my amazing #1 Sidekick shirt.
That's right. More than once, yes. And links to merchandise, links to our Patreon, links to everything. Like I said, Linktree.
That's right. Watch the videos. You can see all of our Nightwing swag and see things that you need to purchase for yourself.
That's right. Yes, that's all at Linktree. And then please go support our sponsors, Tweaked Audio, Hunt to Killer. Use the code Southgate for both of those for a discount. And then, hey, for you learned types, I got 2 books for you. One, Pod Life the book. Now in digital paperback. An audio version is coming and a volume 2 is coming. So go pick that up. And again, if you're a fan of Dick Grayson, go pick up Dick Grayson, Boy Wonder. You can find both of those books on Amazon. And when you do, use the code for Southgate Media Group right down there in the show notes. Help us support this show, the network, and that crazy man, Rob, Master Doom Southgate.
Make it rain, so says Master Doom. Please kick me in the pants.
And ask no questions, Robin.
Oh, Batman.
Just so I don't forget.
Diggity dank.
All right, so.
Maybe 2020 will be Diggity Dank's year. I keep trying to make it have a comeback.
Oh, yeah, maybe when once everything's closer to normal, and we can be like, man, today was so diggity dank.
It was so diggity dank that we finally kicked COVID's butt.
It's a lot of butt.
Yeah.
So, yes, thank you, everyone. Again, come back next 2 weeks. We're going to finish up that Detective Comics run, and then the animated series. So, yeah, basically, the last 2 weeks of December will be, animation. Christmas and New Year's treat, yes. Batman the Animated Series.
Shows you can watch with your family over the holidays.
Exactly. Watch it, yes. Watch them and then come get our perspective. All right. But you know when that's coming, right? Same wing time. Same wing channel.
The
Nightwing News. Keep flying, Graysons. Thank you, Tim Seeley.